She sat at the round table long after Shin left. The garden outside had gone completely dark. Just the fountain catching the light from the house and throwing it back in small broken pieces. She thought about what he had said. The years of looking? She turned it over and over. The shape of what was wrong with Shin had been formless for days. A feeling, a wrongness she could sense but not see clearly. Now it had edges. She was still working out what those edges meant when she heard footsteps in the corridor outside. She recognized them without looking up. She had learned his footsteps the way she had learned everything else in this house. Against her will. Without deciding to. The way your body learns things that your brain has not given permission for. He passed the doorway. He did not stop, but he slowed. 1 second, just one. His head turned the smallest amount toward the open door, and she was looking directly at him, and for that 1 second their eyes were in the same room before he looked away and kept walking. She sat with that 1 second after he was gone. She pressed her lips together. She looked at the dark garden. She told herself it was nothing. She told herself it very firmly. The fountain ran quietly outside and said nothing helpful. Shin came to her the next morning, warm as always, carrying tea she had not asked for, sitting across from her with that pleasant, forgettable face arranged into something that looked like kindness and was not. She had decided that. She was certain of it now. Whatever Shin's face was doing, it was not kindness. "How did you sleep?" he said. "Well," she said, "good." He set the tea down in front of her. "You look better." More settled. She said nothing. He stirred his own cup. "I have been thinking," he said, casually, the way he said everything that was not casual, "about your situation." She looked at him. "It must be difficult," he said, "not being able to contact anyone. Your mother, your friends." "It is," she said carefully. "There is a window," he said, "in the east corridor. Camera 4. There is a gap in the feed between 2:15 and 2:30 every night." "Maintenance cycle," he said it simply, like he was telling her what was for breakfast. "A gap," she said. "If someone wanted to get a message out," he said. "A phone signal carries from that window. The camera would not catch it." He looked at her. She looked at him. "I thought you should know," he said, "in case you needed to reach someone." He stood. He straightened his jacket. "Just in case," he said pleasantly. He walked out. She sat there. She looked at the tea. She looked at the door. She thought about it for the rest of the day. At 2:17 she was standing at the window in the east corridor. She had found a phone 2 days ago. Small. Behind a loose panel in the library skirting board that had been slightly too loose for a room this well maintained. She had left it there. She had not touched it. She had not known what to do with it yet. She knew now. She held it, and she typed fast, short, specific, enough for Amaka to know she was here and that she needed to move. A new place, a different district, away from wherever she was now. She sent it. She put the phone back. She walked back to her room. She lay in the dark and told herself she had done the right thing. She did not know that Shin had been watching the corridor from the far end. She did not know he had seen everything. She did not know he had been waiting for exactly this. She had no idea what she had just handed him. 2 days passed. She watched the house. She watched Shin move through it. She watched Kang Jae work and leave and come back and work again. She watched the guards rotate. She watched all of it and learned more and felt more certain about less, and was beginning to understand that certainty was not something this house offered anyone. On the afternoon of the second day she was walking back from the kitchen. Fast, in her socks because she had left her shoes in the library and could not be bothered to go back for them. The marble was polished to the point of dishonesty. She hit a wet patch near the east staircase where someone had mopped without putting a sign down, and her foot went one direction and everything else went the other direction, and she had approximately half a second of pure, undignified air before something caught her. 2 arms, from behind. She was pulled back against a chest before she registered he was there. 1 second. 2, his arms around her, her back against him, his breath somewhere above her head. She straightened. She found her feet. She turned around. Kang Jae looked at her. "Are you stalking me?" she said. "Because normal people make noise when they walk, announce themselves, clear their throat. Something—" "Normal people," he said, "wear shoes on marble floors." She looked down at her socks. She looked back up at him. "I was not expecting visitors in my temporary prison," she said. He looked at her feet. He looked at her face. Something moved in his expression. He turned and walked away. She stood there and watched him go. She stood there for a moment longer than she needed to. She looked at the wet patch on the floor that had started everything. She looked down the corridor where he had gone. She felt something move through her chest. She stamped it out immediately. No, absolutely not. She walked back to her room with her socks squeaking slightly on the marble, and her jaw set and her chest doing things she was refusing to acknowledge. She sat on the edge of her bed. She pressed her palms flat on her knees. She had a conversation with herself. A serious one. She started the conversation with herself that she had been having versions of for days now. "You cannot," she told herself. She looked at the window. "He kidnapped you," she said, firmly. "To the window, to the room, to whatever part of her was not listening properly. He had men drag you across Seoul in the back of a car. He put his hand around your throat. He locked every door in this building." She stood up. She walked to the window. "He also carried you to bed when you fell asleep on the floor," said a very unhelpful part of her brain. She told that part to shut up. "He paid your rent," it continued. "Stop." "He handled your mother's money without being asked. He said nobody asks, like it had cost him something to say it. He ate every single apple. I said stop." She pressed her forehead against the glass. The city blazed below, unbothered, continuing its business. "You are a waitress from Lagos," she told herself. "You are in this house because your friend needed protection. You are not here to develop feelings for the man who brought you here by force. You are not here to notice the way he says your name, or the way he caught you just now, or the way he looked at the photograph alone in the sitting room when he did not know anyone was watching." She pulled back from the glass. "He wants to find Amaka," she said. "That is what he is. That is what this is. He is a dangerous man who runs half a city and comes home bleeding and does not think twice about it. That is not a man you—" She stopped. She looked at her reflection in the dark glass. Her reflection looked back at her with an expression she did not appreciate at all. "You are not falling in love with your kidnapper," she told her reflection. Her reflection said nothing. "You are not." The city hummed outside. "Amara," she told herself, "you are a practical woman. You have been practical your whole life. You packed one bag and moved to Seoul and built a life from nothing through sheer stubbornness. You carried trays for 14 months without a single late mark. You are not the kind of woman who—" She thought about 2 arms catching her before she hit the floor. She thought about the sound he made when his wound caught, and how it was the most honest thing she had heard from him. She thought about "not you," said simply. "Without armor." She grabbed the pillow from the bed and pressed it over her face. She held it there. She put it down. She lay back and stared at the ceiling. "This is the stress," she told the ceiling. "This is what happens when you lock a person in a house. They start attaching to whatever is available. It is psychology. It has a name. You have read about this." The ceiling offered no confirmation. "It is not real," she said. "Whatever this is, it is not real. It is proximity and adrenaline, and the fact that he is the only interesting thing in this building, and your brain is bored." She closed her eyes. She opened them. "Bored," she repeated. "That is all this is." She turned onto her side. She looked at the wall. "Go to sleep," she told herself. "Go to sleep, and in the morning you focus on what matters. You focus on Amaka and Shin, and what is wrong with this house, and how to fix it. You focus on the actual problem." She closed her eyes. His voice said her name somewhere in her head. The way he said it, correctly, deliberately. She pressed her face into the pillow. "I'm going to need a stronger ceiling," she thought. On the 3rd evening she was walking past the kitchen when she stopped. She looked at the coffee machine. She thought about the light she had seen under his office door every night this week. The same light. Every night. While the rest of the house went dark around it. She went into the kitchen. She made coffee. She told herself she was making it because she wanted some. She poured 1 cup. She stood at the counter. She poured a second. She looked at the 2nd cup for a moment. Then she picked it up and walked out. His office door was open the way it was always slightly open. The light came out into the dark corridor in a warm, narrow strip across the floor. She stopped at the door frame and looked in. He was at the desk. Jacket off. Sleeves pushed up. Papers in front of him. The particular stillness of someone who had stopped noticing how long they had been sitting there. She looked at the cup in her hand. She crouched down. She set it quietly on the floor just outside the open door. She left the coffee outside his office that night because she could not sleep, and she was passing and the door was open and the light was on, and he had been at that desk since before dinner, and she was not doing it because of anything except that she was up anyway, and the kitchen was right there. She told herself that very clearly while she was making it. She did not go in. She walked away. She was almost at the staircase when she heard his chair move. She kept walking. She told her chest to behave. Her chest did not behave. She got to her room and closed the door and sat on the edge of the bed and pressed her palms flat on her knees. "That was just coffee," she told herself. "You walked it to his office," said the part of her brain she had been arguing with for 3 days. "The kitchen and the office are in the same building." You crouched down so he would not hear you. I did not want to disturb him. Amara. What? You made the man coffee. She lay back on the bed and looked at the ceiling. The ceiling said nothing useful. The next afternoon the rain came without warning. It was raining when she went into the East Wing garden. She had not noticed the weather changing. She had been sitting on the garden bench thinking, and the rain had come in the way soul rain came in sometimes. Suddenly, like it had been planning this for a while and simply chose now. She was soaked before she decided to move. She stood up. He was at the garden entrance. He held out a jacket. He said nothing for a moment, just held it out. It is raining, he said. I noticed, she said. Take the jacket. I am already wet. Amara. Taking it changes nothing, she said. I am already completely wet. The jacket is now decorative. Take the jacket, he said, or stand there and argue with the rain. Your choice. She walked over. She took the jacket. She put it on. It was enormous. It came past her hands. It smelled like him in a way she immediately decided not to think about. Something moved in his face. Not the smirk. Something softer and faster than the smirk. Something that came and went before she could fully see it. He turned and went back inside. She stood in the rain in his jacket. She looked up at the grey sky. You are not, she told herself. The rain fell. You are absolutely not. She followed him inside. She is losing the argument with herself, and she knows it. Subscribe, share this, like it, because the house is about to shake. Shin has what he came for. Amaka is already in danger, and she is standing in a borrowed jacket still warm from someone she cannot afford to feel anything for. Part 3 is only just beginning. She woke up from her afternoon nap that day, but something felt off. Her body wasn't responding the way it usually did. There was a strange feeling she couldn't quite explain, but she tried to shake it off. Then suddenly the door opened, not knocked. Opened. He came in and the room changed immediately the way it always changed when he entered it, except this time it changed differently. The air was different. He was different. She sat up from the bed. She looked at him. He was not cold. He was not controlled. He was not any of the versions of him she had learned in the weeks she had been in this house. He crossed the room in 4 steps and stopped in front of her, and his eyes were doing something she had never seen in them before. Where is Amaka? He said. She felt the name land. She kept her face steady. I do not know who. Where is Amaka? I think you have me confused with... Do not! His voice was quiet. The dangerous kind of quiet. Do not do that right now. She opened her mouth. She tried for a small laugh. Light, unbothered. The laugh she had been using in this house whenever she needed to buy herself 3 seconds. He looked at her. What is funny? He said. Tell me, do I run a comedy show here? Is this a stage? The laugh died. She said nothing. He held up his phone. She looked at the screen, and her whole body stopped. Amaka was on a floor, hands tied, face to the side, hair covering part of her face, but not enough. Not enough to hide the cut above her eye. Not enough to hide the way she was lying, not like someone resting, like someone who had been put there and left. Her chest was moving. She was alive. But... Amaka, she said. It came out of her like something that had been waiting behind her teeth for weeks. She stood up from the bed. She reached for the phone. He pulled it back slightly. She looked up at him. Let me see her, she said. Her voice was different now. She heard it herself. All the performance gone out of it. Please? He looked at her face. He held the phone out. She took it with both hands. She looked at the screen. She looked at the cut, at the rope on her wrists, at the floor she was lying on, at her chest rising and falling in that small, shallow way. Something cracked open in her, wide and sudden and completely unmanageable. She sat back down on the edge of the bed. She sat there with his phone in her hands, and she looked at her friend on that floor, and she started to cry. Not politely. Not quietly. The real thing. The kind that comes from somewhere below your chest and does not ask permission. He stood in front of her and said nothing. She pressed the back of her hand against her mouth and tried to hold it and could not. Her name is Amaka, she said. Her voice was broken into pieces. Her name is Amaka, and she is mine. She is my person. He was very still. I know you want to know who I am, she said. I know you have been wanting to know since the first night, so I am going to tell you. She looked up at him. Her eyes were wet, and her face was giving him everything, and she did not care any more. My name is Amara. I am a waitress. I live in Mapo district. I came to this city 4 years ago with 1 bag and enough money for 1 month, and I have been building something here ever since. She paused. That is who I am. That is all I was before your men put me in that car. He said nothing. I met Amaka 2 years after I arrived, she said. She came to the restaurant where I worked. She was sitting alone at a corner table, and she had been crying and trying to hide it, and she was doing a terrible job. Something moved through her face. I brought her food she did not order. She told me to take it back. I sat down across from her instead. She looked at her hands, holding his phone. My manager nearly fired me for that, she said. I did not care. She was quiet for a moment. She had nowhere to go, she said. She had just lost her mother. She was alone in this city with nothing and no one, and men who kept appearing at places she thought were safe. Her voice thinned. So, I took her home. To my small apartment in Moppo with the 2 plants on the windowsill and the shower that only had 2 temperatures. I gave her the bed, and I slept on the floor, and I told her she could stay as long as she needed. She looked up at him. She stayed, she said. She never left. And I never asked her to. His face was unreadable. She did not stop. I knew everything, she said. She told me everything. Her mother, how she died, the men who came for her, the same men who kept finding her no matter where she went. Her voice was shaking. She sat on my floor one night and she told me all of it, every single thing. And she was shaking while she said it, and I held her hand and I told her that, as long as I was breathing, nobody was going to touch her. She looked at him. I meant it, she said. I did not say it to comfort her. I meant every word. She stood up. She walked to the window. She could not sit still with this any more. Every time they got close we moved, she said. New apartment, new routine, new everything. I would lose shifts, lose money. I did not care. We packed whatever we had and we moved and we started again. She turned to face him. I have been doing that with her for 2 years. 2 years of looking over our shoulders and changing numbers and learning which streets were safe and which ones were not. She shook her head. The morning your men came, she said. I signed that clipboard because I was not paying attention. I know that. That is my fault. But when they brought me through your door, and I saw that photograph. Her voice broke. She steadied it. I saw a photograph of my friend as a child, in the hands of a man I did not know, in a house full of men who had just dragged me across the city in a car. She looked at him. I made a decision, she said. What decision? I decided to be her. The room held that. You decided, he said slowly. What was I supposed to think? She said. He said nothing. I thought you were them, she said, the ones who had been hunting her. I thought you were the people she had been running from her whole life, and now you thought you had her, and I was standing right there in front of you. Her chin lifted. So I decided to be her. The room was completely still. Every question you asked me, she said, every test, the photograph, Lagos, Surulere, Auntie Bisi's school. She held his gaze. Everything I answered was from what Amaka told me. The stories she shared on cold nights when her guard came down just enough. I used her own memories to lie to your face, and I would do it again. Her voice broke on the last word. I would do it 100 times again because she is my sister, not by blood, not by any paper. But she is my sister, and she has nobody in this world but me, and I was not going to let you find her. She was crying fully now. She did not wipe it. She stood there and let it fall and kept her eyes on his face. The question you asked me, she said, about her mother, what she gave her before she died. She shook her head. Amaka never told me that. That was the one thing she never said, the one door she kept closed. Her voice dropped. And I sat there in front of you with nothing. No answer, no story, nothing. She looked at him. Because some things she kept only for herself, and I was not going to invent them. Not that, not her mother. She pressed her hand over her eyes for a moment. She took it away. I sent a message, she said, while I was in this house. There was a way to get a signal out, and I found it, and I used it. I told her to move, to go somewhere new. I thought I was buying her time. Her voice was very quiet now. I thought I was protecting her. She looked at the phone in his hand, at Amaka on that floor. I thought I was protecting her, she said again. And this time she could not steady her voice at all. She sat back down on the bed. She pressed both hands over her face. Her shoulders shook. She cried for Amaka, who had lost her mother and had nothing. She cried for the cold soul nights and the small apartment and the floor she had slept on so her friend could have the bed. She cried for all the time she had watched Amaka look over her shoulder and had put herself between her and whatever was coming. She cried because she had tried so hard, and Amaka was still on that floor somewhere, and the cut above her eye was real, and the rope on her wrists was real, and all of it was real. He stood in the room and let her. He did not move. He did not speak. He just stood there. And when she finally took her hands from her face and looked up at him, he was looking at her with something in his eyes that she did not have the energy to read. I lied to you, she said. Her voice was wrecked. Every day in this house. I lied to your face. And I need you to know that none of it was about you. She looked at him. It was always only ever about her. He looked at her. "You thought I was hunting her," he said. "Yes, to hurt her. Yes, that is what you thought I was." She looked at him steadily. "Tell me," she said quietly, "what was I supposed to think?" The room was silent. He turned. He walked to the window. He stood there with his back to her and his hands in his pockets, and she watched his shoulders and waited. "She is my sister." He said it to the window. She stared at his back. "Her name is Amaka, and she is my sister," he said. "And she does not know I have been looking for her for 6 years." She said nothing. "My mother," he said. "She left my father when I was 11. He was—" He stopped. The muscles in his jaw moved. "He was not a man you stayed married to if you wanted to survive. She left. She took me. She could not take more than that." He was quiet. Years later, she met someone else. A good man. She was happy. I was older. I was working. He paused. Amaka was born. Different father. Different name. And I was— Something moved in his voice. "I was so glad. I was so glad she had that. That my mother had that." She watched his back. "My father found out," he said. "About the man. About the happiness. Men like my father cannot leave happiness alone." His voice had gone very quiet. "He killed him. Amaka's father. He stopped. My mother went back to bearing her own name after that. She stopped using my father's name. She thought it would protect her." He turned around. She looked at his face. He was not cold. He was not controlled. He was a man standing in the middle of something he had been carrying for a very long time. "It did not protect her," he said. His voice was steady. His eyes were not. "Our rivals came for her," he said, "because she was not under my father's name anymore, because she had no protection, because she was alone." He swallowed. "I was 20 minutes away when they called me. 20 minutes. He stopped. His nose twitched. He pressed his lips together. "I did not make it in time." She pressed her hand over her mouth. "Amaka was 9, he said. "She was 9 years old, and I was 20 minutes away, and I did not." His voice broke. "Just once." He caught it immediately, pulled it back, held it. "I did not make it in time." He looked at the ceiling for a moment. He looked back at her. His eyes were wet, and he was not going to let them fall, and she could see how hard he was working to stop that, and something in her chest tore quietly. "I stood at my mother's grave," he said, "and I made her a promise that I would find Amaka, that whatever she was now, whatever name she was carrying, I would find her and I would put her under mine, because they do not go for what is under my name." He paused. "Not any more," he sniffed. "Once, quietly, the contract," he said. "I know how it looks. I know what it looked like to you." His jaw moved. "But it was the only way I knew how to protect someone without being there. My name is the only thing in this city that nobody touches. And she needed it. She has always needed it. And I was not there when she needed it the first time." He stopped speaking. The room was completely still. She was crying. She had not decided to cry. It had simply happened somewhere between his mother's name and the 20 minutes in the grave. She pressed the back of her hand against her mouth. He looked at her. His eyes were very bright. He sniffed again. "Every day," he said, "while you were in this house, every single day I was still sending men. Still going out. Still looking." Something flickered across his face. "The night you saw the blood. That was not a wall." "I know," she whispered. "I could not stop," he said. "Even with you here, even when part of me wanted to believe it was her, I could not stop, because the part that doubted me was louder. It was always louder." He pressed his fingers against his mouth for a moment. 6 years of louder. His voice cracked. He closed his eyes. One breath he opened them, a single tear. He did not wipe it. She did not look away. She let him be seen. She let all of it be seen, because it felt like the only true thing she could offer him right now. After a moment she spoke. "Why did you not release me?" she said softly. "When you doubted, why keep me here?" He looked at her. He took a breath. "Because the night they brought you in," he said, "my rivals were watching this house. They are always watching." He paused. "If I had let you go, and you were connected to her in any way, they would have followed you straight to her." She looked at him. "You were safer here," he said, "than out there, even not knowing it, even hating me for keeping you." He held her gaze. "I could not risk you." She sat with that, with all of it, with everything he had just laid in this room between them. She looked at his face, at what was still sitting in it, all that he had just said out loud for possibly the first time in 6 years. He wiped his face once, one hand, quick, like he was closing a door that had opened without his permission. She watched him do it. She watched him pull himself back together the way she had watched him do everything else in this house. Methodical, piece by piece. The jaw first, then the shoulders, then the eyes going flat and cold and controlled, and the man who had just been standing in front of her with 6 years on his face disappearing behind the man this house knew. He straightened. He looked at the wall. The room was quiet. She looked at him for a moment. "It is okay," she said softly, "to feel that." He said nothing. "What you just showed me," she said. "That was not weakness," he said. She stopped. "That is what it was," he said. His voice was even, completely even, like the last 10 minutes had happened to someone else entirely. "That is all it was." She looked at him. "It was not weakness," she said. "You have been carrying that for 6 years alone, and—" "In my world," he said. He turned and looked at her. His eyes were completely flat, every single trace of what had just lived in them gone. "In my world," he said again, quietly. Finally, like he was explaining something very simple to someone who did not understand the language yet. "That is weakness. That is the only thing it is. And weakness gets people killed." She opened her mouth. She looked at his face. She closed it. She sat with that, with the flatness of his eyes and the steadiness of his voice, and the particular loneliness of a man who had decided a long time ago that feeling things was a luxury that cost too much, and had been paying that price ever since. She did not say anything else. He looked at the door. "I need to go get her," he said. Something shifted in the room when he said it, something that had been wound tight for weeks releasing slightly. The reason for all of it, the thing underneath everything. "Yes," she said. He moved toward the corridor. "Shin." His voice was sharp, commanding, back to what it always was. Silence. Shin. Nothing. Shin. The house did not answer. He stood in the doorway. She watched the back of his neck, the way he held himself completely still for 1 second. 2. A guard appeared at the far end of the corridor, running slightly, his face tight. "Where is Shin?" Kang Jae said. "Boss." The guard stopped. He looked at Kang Jae and then looked at something behind his eyes that he was trying to figure out how to say. "We cannot reach him. His phone has been off since this afternoon. We have checked everywhere in the house. He is not—" "Put every man on it," Kang Jae said. His voice did not rise. It never rose. It just got quieter and quieter until it became the most dangerous sound in the room. "Every single man. You find him. You bring him to me. You do not come back without him." "Yes, boss." "Go." The guard turned and ran. He stood in the doorway. She stood behind him. She looked at the back of him, at the set of his shoulders, at a man who had just broken open in front of her and put himself back together and was now standing in a corridor calling for a man who was not there. She thought about Shin, about every single thing Shin had ever said to her in this house, about the window, about the phone, about the years of looking, about the way he appeared in doorways, about the way he asked about the photograph, every time, not once for Kang Jae. She thought about Amaka on that floor. She thought about the timing. She thought about all of it landing in the right order for the very first time. Kang Jae. He turned. She looked at him. "Shin is your rival," she said. The corridor went completely airless. He looked at her. He did not move. Something crossed his face. Fast. Something she had never seen on it before. Something that looked like fear before his brain caught it by the throat and dragged it back. Then his eyes sharpened, all at once, like everything in him had just switched on at the same time. He crossed the corridor in 3 steps and stopped in front of her, and she held her ground, because stepping back felt like the wrong thing, and her body seemed to know that even if her mind was still catching up. "The message," he said. His voice was very low. "The one you sent from inside this house. How exactly did you send it?" She looked at him steadily. "Someone told me there was a window," she said. "East corridor. Camera 4. They said the feed had a gap every night between 2:15 and 2:30, a maintenance cycle." She held his gaze. "I found a phone behind a panel in the library. I used it." He stared at her. "I sent Amaka a message to move," she said. "I thought I was warning her. I thought I was buying her time." He said nothing. The muscles in his jaw moved. "There is no gap," he said. She looked at him. "In camera 4, he said, in any camera in this house. There is no maintenance cycle. There has never been one." His voice was completely flat. "I built this system myself. I know every feed in this building, every single one. There is no gap." She felt the cold move through her slowly. "Which means," she said. He looked at her. His eyes were doing something she had never seen them do. "Which means," she said again, quietly. "Someone put it there. The gap. The phone." She held his gaze. "Someone built a door inside your house that you did not know was there. And then they told me exactly where to find it." The room was completely still. He looked at her face. She looked at his. Someone who knew this house, she said. Well enough to put something in it that you would never find. She paused. Someone who has been inside it long enough to know exactly where the cameras are. And exactly where they are not. He stood in front of her and said nothing. She watched his face. She watched the thing that was moving through it. The realization arriving not like something new, but like something he had been refusing to look at directly and could not refuse anymore. 7 years. Shin had been in this house for 7 years. She watched that land on him. She watched him take it. She did not look away. He built every camera in that house himself. And someone walked through it like they had the blueprints. Subscribe, share this. Like it, because the name neither of them has said out loud yet is the one that breaks everything open.